You are listening to the It's Your Time podcast, and I'm your host, Certified Life Coach Michelle Arnold Burke. In today's episode, I'm discussing the She Suite Summit, Elevating Women Leaders with Melissa Dawn Simpkins. Welcome to the It's Your Time podcast, the podcast where busy professionals like you get the practical solutions and support you need to gain control of your schedule so you can strive to be the best in your career, but without the stress and overwhelm. If you're looking to increase your energy and decrease your stress, you are in the right place. Hello. Welcome back to the podcast, friends. Okay, today we have an extraordinary guest who has been a trailblazer in personal branding and leadership innovation. I am so thrilled to be able to introduce you to Melissa Dawn Simpkins, affectionately known as the First Lady of Personal Branding. And as the president and CEO of Velvet Suite and the visionary founder of the She Suite, Melissa has dedicated nearly 2 decades to redefining leadership and empowering individuals to harness their full potential. Melissa's groundbreaking work includes creating the NFL Player Brand University in partnership with the National Football League, the first personal brand development academy in professional sports. So fun, right? She's also the best-selling author of Brand Me, Make Your Mark, the ultimate playbook for personal branding, and a sought-after strategist who has been featured on CNN, CNBC, and more. And I mentioned empowerment. Speaking of empowerment, mark your calendars for Friday, March 14th, 2025. It is just around the corner. And Melissa is celebrating with her team the 10th anniversary of the She Suite Summit 2025. This is a one-day virtual global summit, and it is designed to help you discover actionable strategies to build personal resilience, inspire teams, and create transformative change, even in uncertain times. And Melissa talked about this during our conversation, and I love how much she mentioned the word connection. We can all use that nowadays, and this event allows you the ability to join a community of transformative leaders and change makers from around the world. I feel so privileged to be connected to Melissa now, and the insights on life that she shared, as well as the gems across the ideas of leadership and personal brand and self-development. I am sure they are all going to make a difference for you. I could have talked to her for hours. I loved it so much, but instead, I will stop here. I will let you enjoy. Now, please do take a listen to this inspiring conversation with Melissa Dawn Simpkins. Get ready to be empowered and motivated to lead with purpose. Okay, this is going to be so much fun. Thank you for being here. Can we get started by having you introduce yourself in a way that you most enjoy?
You know what? I love my nickname. My husband gave me my nickname, Sunshine. And that is, my middle name is Melissa Dawn Simpkins. And I love that because literally this morning, Michelle, I was thinking about how my mom told me I got my name, Melissa Dawn. And just very quickly, because I wasn't expecting this as my first question, but it just came to me because I was thinking about this morning. My mom had several miscarriages. And so she told my dad on his birthday that next year I'm going to give you a child. And my dad's birthday is June 17th and my birthday is June 22nd. So literally she spoke me into existence, and it was a dawn for a new day for her and my dad, because I'm number one of two. So I love that my husband calls me Sunshine. It puts a high bar on me because nobody doesn't like the sunshine. Everybody loves the sunshine. And, you know, I'm lovable sometimes not so much, but
Aren't we all?
aren't we all? But I try to bring the light. I try to bring the light in any situation. And so that's my name. That's who I am. I am a wife. I'm a mom. I'm an athlete. I'm a believer. I'm a business owner. I'm every woman. I mean,
I love it.
it's all in all of us, right? Yeah. So that's
I
my
did not know that story. I love that. It gives me chills. That's super cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And speaking of every woman, I think that's one of the big things that we're kind of here to talk about today with the She Suite Summit coming up on March 14th. So maybe you could just give a little insight as to what that global virtual event is all about for people listening.
Sure. So the She Suite Summit is our 10th anniversary, March 14th. 10 years we've been doing this thing called Global Connections and bringing people together. It is a platform of our company, which is Velvet Suite. So our company is Velvet Suite. We're a leadership innovation firm. And the She Suite kind of is a flagship offering supporting women in the workplace. Our theme this year, Michelle, is really, I think, providential for this moment. We came up with a theme last year, but it is chart your course, ignite change from within. And all of us living through change right now, it's such a rapid pace and it's not going anywhere. Everything in life changes, but the biggest challenge is how we change. So the day is really designed to be this master class of how do you change yourself? How do you then impact change around those that you work with, your team, your relationships, and then ultimately, can you create change that can change the world? And before the summit was global, it was very much a local event. So we said 10 years. March 11th, COVID was named a global pandemic. March 13th, we were to have our fifth annual She Suite Summit in person with 200 attendees. So literally the announcement came down at 4:30. I was in the hotel, the Ritz-Carlton in Tyson's Corner, and there was like, I was ignoring the COVID thing. I thought it was like the corona. I mean, I was just like, yeah, like the beer. This is not a real thing. Because when we know as women, we lock in, like it's gonna happen. We're gonna will it to happen. Yeah. And this I could not will away. And it was like it's shut down. And I'm like, but we have all of our flowers, all of our like the event's happening in 36 hours. What are we gonna do? And it was a moment where I had to say, change is here. Are you going to just say, and a lot of people just canceled. And I was like, no, what if we could be the answer people needed in this dark moment? So in 36 hours, we flipped it to a virtual event. And that was the first ever. And mind you, Michelle, that was 200. Last year, we had near 1,000 attendees, 22 countries. Like we never would have gotten to that level had we not embraced that hard moment of change. Right. And so I think that journey and the lessons I personally learned as a leader, and I also believe have helped me become a leader that can lead other leaders through moments of change is really what we want to talk about and do something about at the summit this year.
I love that so much. I think change is like the one constant in life for sure.
Yes.
But I
Yes.
love what you said about changing within first. That was kind of the start of it, right? And I feel like that's where we hold our power. And I know there are so many people, myself included. I sometimes think like if that person would only change, life would be so much better. But I can't figure out how to get them to change the way I want them to. So I think what you're talking about is just such a great example of once you take the ownership for it, extreme ownership, like what could be possible for you to make a difference in the world.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's hard to face the hard truth that sometimes the problem is us, and it could be our mindset that we're just very fixed in a way that we do things. It could be that we have built defense mechanisms and we react to people and situations based on our history and our past. So the courage to start with yourself, it is a courageous act because we have to, as leading women, we have to put our guards down. We have to realize, I'm great. I have great intention, but I also have some areas that I'm flawed. And that's what makes me human. And let
Yeah.
me deal with those areas, right? And also let me deal with my strengths and accelerate and accentuate those. And so it's just it's going to be the morning sessions, or the first one is the courage starts with you. And that first session is going to talk about that. The next session under the self pillar is going to talk about building the healthy boundaries and well-being, right? And how do we make sure that we're not just saying yes out of obligation, but that we really are clear on our no's and our yeses, right? And then we're going to do a whole workshop. We have an amazing speaker who went through chapter 11 and she talks about recreating your life. So a lot of people are in a chapter 11 moment right now with losing their job or with the changes happening around us. And so having that type of workshop to talk through that is going to be really powerful. So we've been very intentional about the experience that we've designed for the day.
I think the first two pillars that you talk about, being vulnerable and embracing the change like within, being vulnerable, I think is a tough one. I feel like for a lot of women, because I feel like we've been socialized that if we want to be leaders, in the past, it's been like, then you show up and you're got the like masculine energy
Yes.
and
Yeah.
that's how you lead. And so maybe can you talk a little bit about that and what your thoughts are around vulnerability and being open to like maybe being a little bit more feminine and maybe yourself?
Yes. Yes. It is a balance. It is a balance. But I think the first step is acknowledging I am human. right? And my humanity is not my flaw, it's actually my strength. So our perception of that weakness is often what keeps us from our greatness. And I'll explain to you why. I was literally thinking about this morning. I have a whole morning routine thing that I do. And so a lot of ideas and revelations come to me. And at the core of who I am, I started classically in marketing. I'm a marketer. I started at P&G and I did a lot of the corporate stuff. One of the things that you know about great brands is if you want to build connections, you build connection with people, and brands often personify themselves, people you know, like, and trust. And the concept came to me this morning, Michelle, is how many of us know, like, and trust ourselves? We
That
don't
is
really
so
know ourselves because we're doing what everyone else tells us to do. We don't trust our gut. We don't trust that we know even when something inside of us is saying, this is not right. This is not the best for me. And we don't like ourselves because we're so hard on ourselves, right? So if you don't know, like, and trust yourself, how do you then know when to be vulnerable, when to show up strong, how to put, yourself, your best foot forward? It becomes very complicated when it shouldn't be because we don't know ourselves. So I like to think about our whole approach in the work that I do. And this comes from my own personal journey, right? This is not just me lecturing leaders on what they do. I've had to walk this out, Michelle, very in hard places. But one of the things that has been my greatest strength is me really stepping back and building a framework. We call it ID3, identity, image, and influence. Knowing who you are, knowing how you show up to others, and how do you then make magnanimous impact when you're not in the room. So first off is understanding vulnerabilities and strengths, but really taking the time to get to know yourself first, to know who you are and who you're not as well.
Yeah, that is gold. I love that concept of know, like, and trust yourself because I remember, and same thing. I feel like anything I talk about here, it's either I've walked it or I am walking it. Like,
Yeah.
right? I'm not just, and I remember a coach once asked me, like, well, Michelle, what do you want? And I thought that was one of the toughest questions. I was like, what do I want? Like, I guess I never took the time to think about that. And to your point about like trusting your gut, I love human design. I'm a generator. And so that is my main thing is like trusting your gut. And I'm like, I don't even know if I know how to do that. Like when I first started learning about it, right? Because to your point, we always look so often to external sources for validation.
Mm. And the thing that I think is interesting, so within the platform of the She Suite, we coach women around the world, right? So we've had over 1,000 graduates from over 20 plus countries. And what I can tell you that is the key indicator of why that is for women, but also leaders in general, is because we do not invest the time in ourselves to know ourselves, right? We have a program called the Brand Leadership Institute or the MVP Accelerator. And the biggest challenge is getting leaders to actually take time to invest in themselves. Why do you need to do that? Because it's giving you the skills to really know who you are and to lead with intention so you can make the decisions that are aligned. You can be clear about your boundaries. You can know your superpower strength. If you don't take that time, which we don't have a practice, like I'm only giving you what I had in practice this morning because I literally was with myself and I started processing, preparing for the summit. And I'm trying to put connections. I'm like, oh my gosh, they know, like, and trust. I'm giving you something fresh off the, you know,
This
off of
just
the,
in.
just in that. This just in. But it's because I did that. And so when I realized that's so powerful for me, I have to protect it with my life. And that's one of the challenges we as women have. We give to everything and everyone else. We don't give to ourselves that way.
Yeah. So two things that you mentioned, I want to make sure we touch on boundaries for sure, because I feel like that is kind of the overriding situation that we are not great at being intentional with setting boundaries and knowing that it's not a quote unquote bad thing. We'll come back to that. But you've mentioned now a couple times your morning routine. Can you maybe talk about that a little bit? Because I'm all about a morning routine. I think it's so important.
Oh, yeah, it is so important. So I have an ideal day. Let me start with the day. I have an ideal day and I have marked that out into my calendar and I am aspiring to that day on a regular basis. It's not always perfect and it's never perfect, but as I have create that more of a practice, it becomes a reality. So my morning routine, I just did a social media post on it actually last week. But my morning routine is I get up and on the side of my desk here it says she starts each day with a grateful heart. So gratitude is one of my first practices. I do pray. I'm a strong woman of faith and I pray. I have my tea and I have a little chair that's over here. I'm pointing like you can see, but I have a little chair that's in here. have a little nightlight, and I'm up. My husband and I have a very disciplined routine. He is up at 4:30 to get to the gym, to get back at 5:30 or at 5:40, and then I leave at 5:40, and then we come back together for our son to get dressed. But I am in that chair, and I'm not as good as my evening routine, but in the morning routine, I'm up and I have these gratitude cards. We gave them away at Summit last year. So I look at those. I may read the Bible. I may meditate. I have a vision board that sits right here. I'm looking over here because it's all here. And I have this set up in my space. So I'm doing the vision board. I am looking at my cards. I'm praying. I'm meditating. I'm quiet. And then I'm already dressed and I'm out the door to the gym. I literally go to the gym, and I am there from 6:10 to about 7:45. And then I'm with my son. Then I'm giving to the world, my son, my family, the work, all of the things. But that morning routine has been a lifeline. It's a sacrifice because I got to go to sleep. I'm not as good at my evening routines. I'm working on that, but it means the world to me to have that rhythm.
I could not agree more. And people think I'm crazy. I get up at, early, but it's my time. Like, I know that
Time.
most people are not going to be calling me at that
Yes.
hour, and it's my
Yes.
time to do similar. I love that praying,
Yes.
meditate. But I think you probably had to get there. You said that you and your husband have it worked out, that there's some boundaries or conversations at least about being able to have that time allotted to you.
That's a great one. So I'm going to do a podcast with my husband actually, because I asked him yesterday. I said, "Do you want to do a podcast with me? I'm starting a new podcast." But
How
I didn't
fun.
know you said that, Michelle, because I will tell you honestly, and he'll tell you the truth too. I was very sick for all of my life. I suffered with endometriosis and adenomyosis. So I lived in pain chronically for quite some time. I had surgery 2 years ago, and he said to me, "What can I do what can I do to help? Because you're always in pain." I said, "I need you to support my health journey. I just need you to support my health journey." And he did. And he was awesome. And until it became where I was encroaching on his workout time. And I said, "Baby, you said you're going to support me. This is my boundary. I have to have this time." And because I could have acquiesced, but I said, "I have to have this time. And you said you were going to support me." So he worked it out where he gets up before me. Right. But through this journey, I've lost 50 pounds. My life has totally transformed. But it was because I didn't give up on that. That's just a perfect example of that boundary. It's someone who loves me. It's someone who's very close to me. It's someone who I could say, "Well, yeah, I'll do, and I said, "No." And honestly, I went through a moment. I was like, "That's cruel, Melissa." I thought to myself, "You could give a little there." In my head, I won't tell him that. I was like, "You could give a little there." And I said, "No, this is a boundary that you've got to have for your life." And I made it that intense and that crucial for me. And he respected it. And he wants to support me, right? So sometimes the boundaries we create could seem like a compromise to others, but it's what matters to us in order for us to be the best wife, to be the best employee, to be the best leader, to be the best mom. So that's just an example of a boundary that I did not, something inside of me said, "Do not compromise on this boundary." And I didn't.
Yeah, and I think too that goes back to the original part, right? Like, you were very clear on what needed to be taken care of, your health. And
Yes.
so giving yourself the time to know what the clarity is on the goal helps to maybe even have your own back when you're trying to keep that
Absolutely.
boundary.
Yes. Yes. I love that. Have your own back. Yes.
Have your way. I was doing a yoga today, and she was talking about like, kind of having your own heart, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." I always think of it as, like, having your own back, but she was kind of talking about softening and, being compassionate to yourself. Look at me, I'm, like, rolling my eyes as if it's, like, being compassionate to yourself. Clearly, I have some work still.
But see, but Michelle, that's so real because that's what we do. We were like, "Oh, okay, be nice," but we're not. We're so mean girl to
Right.
ourselves.
Oh, absolutely, right, even in your story when you talked about, like, "Oh, that was really not very nice of me," but no, it was very nice of you for yourself.
I've been a chronic people pleaser all my life. So you got to understand this is not just natural for me. I've had to work so hard to get
Yeah. I think that's so important for people to hear because I definitely think that we have been conditioned, right? And it's a neural pathway that's very easy to get to try to people please. So there is work in making these changes. And it's okay to have that initial reaction, but then you have to be intentional with, like, okay, that's maybe what I think just on default, but what do I want to think and say?
Yes. And how did I deliver the message, right? I went back to, you said You wanted to commit to support me. This is what I need, So we can be compassionate and empathetic. We don't have to be cruel and unkind, but we have to be firm and we've got to be, to your point, clear.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Okay, now we've talked a lot about change, but I think one area we can kind of talk about is where maybe we can improve, right? I think there's still a lot of areas of improvement for women leaders just in general. Can you maybe speak to that a little bit and where you see maybe some barriers and maybe ways, in addition to, right, being clear and setting boundaries, right? There's still other things that we can maybe do to overcome some of these barriers as women leaders.
Oh gosh. Um,
You're like, I could be here for another hour.
I'm trying to think of something that you've not heard before, right? Because there's so much that we regurgitate over and over and over again. One of the things that I have really been fascinated in this whole shift of DE&I is that women actually make up more than 50% of the population, working population in the United States, right? And we are 80% plus the buying decisions. It, however you want to frame the D&I conversation, the fact is that women are disproportionately impactful in the marketplace and in the workplace. So we need to stop seeing ourselves as less than or the minority of, right? And we are the group that cuts across all groups, right? And so it's just important for us to see ourselves differently, and I think for organizations to see women differently. It's not it's not just a subgroup. It is your workplace. It is the buying power of your brands. So there is such a thread that, and it is the foundation of humanity, right? So there's a human thread, there's a business thread, there's a workplace thread that goes throughout this whole conversation. So when it comes to the challenges, I think one is how we perceive and how we box in women. I think two, in the workplace, I think women have to really make decisions around how they want to show up as leaders. I remember before starting my business, I was in the corporate environment, many corporate environments. And I remember being in one, and it was a retail organization, and I was in the corporate office, and I was young coming out of college. And Michelle, I remember looking at all the women, and I was like, I don't want to be like any of them.
Mm.
Like, I am ambitious, I'm inspired by their success, but their life looks horrible to me. And they all were mimicking each other in dress, in tonality, and it was not inspiring for me as a young leader coming up. I was like, I want something different. I want to be ambitious. I want to be successful, but I want to have a life. I want to have a family. I want to have passions outside of work. And so I think women have the opportunity. We are catalytic. What we do creates impact, ripple impact. And I think if we start to lead, I say lead with our whole lives and start to model a new way to lead. That's my passion, my whole platform. Then we can begin to be the change that the workplace needs, because people are burnt out. They are stressed out. They are not feeling fulfilled. Gallup said engagement is down to close to 30%, at 15 or 20% low. So you're paying for a salary. You're only getting 30% of the value of the person's contribution. What is that? Like, we've reduced work down to something so minuscule, and yet it's the universal, ubiquitous thing that we all have to do. So why not be passionate about it? Why not bring your not whole self to work, but like bring the entire purpose and aligning it with your work? So I think there's challenges there, and that's women breaking the mold on how we're going to lead differently.
Yeah, I definitely see that when I first started in this, corporate medical device like world, and one of my managers, who was a male, actually said, "Shell, you need to have your accounts see more of who you really are." Because I was like, "No, I need to be very corporate, and I need to be like this is right." And so when he said they need to see more of you, I was like, "No, they can't see the craziness of me. Like what?" But right here we are now, kind of talking about similar.
Yes. Yes, because it creates that sense of connection, right? And people, they're like, oh, she's got the crazies like I have the crazies, right? It's that know, like, and trusting again. And so it just builds the bond, it builds the connection, it builds the value.
And I think too, one of the things you first said about this was that we need to look at ourselves as giving ourselves more credit, right? Like I hear so often from women, whether in the coaching world and my, day-to-day job world, friends, about not being enough, like smart enough, thin enough, rich enough, like whatever it is, I'm not doing enough. And so I think it's stopping, right? That again, neural pathway, and looking at ourselves differently in order to then be seen differently.
Absolutely. It's funny because they say that, a woman will apply for a job when she's got 100% of the criteria and a man will like 60%. And I have some older sons, right? And I listen to, I'm a mom of all boys and we have a beautiful blended family. But I remember when we first got married and listening to the boys around the table with my husband, and I was just like, they talk like they can just take over the world. I mean, it's no experience, but it's the way that men think. And it's just a natural innate thing. And it's like we don't give ourselves enough credit. We don't even talk about our accomplishments in the same way.
Yeah, I was at a leadership meeting for women years ago, and I wish I could remember who said it, but the person on stage said, "You need to take control of your career." Like we always have blinders on, and we're taking care of, patients, doctors, day to day, whatever it is, work. Don't think that people just recognize you. Like you need to be able to speak up, and you need to be the one in control.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, it's so we both kind of talked about, like, when we were younger. If you're
Mhm.
looking back, at your younger self, what kind of career advice do you think you would give yourself?
Great vibes.
Or, either personal or professional. I think it doesn't matter because 'cause we've been talking about, like, our whole selves, so
Yes. Okay, so career advice, I would say you did a good job. Like I literally my high school, I'm not gonna tell you how many years it is, but we're having a reunion coming up. And I saw some pictures on Facebook and Michelle, everyone was hanging out outside at recess. I did speech comps, I did speech whatever, but I was in a suit. Like nobody else was in a suit. It's just like, what are you doing? Like you're in high school. So that would I did that well. I did that well because I always had a plan. I had an annual plan. I had all the things, right? I think my personal stuff, I would have relaxed and had more fun along the way. Like I got there, but a former executive that I work with used to say, it's not the job that you applied for, it's the job that you didn't that actually made the difference, right? And so that means you have all these intentions, but doors open up that you didn't plan for, that you didn't know you'd be in that room, and suddenly, bam, it's there. You're prepared, but it didn't unfold the way. And if you're trying to be so focused on the way will frustrate you and you will try to work your way to get to the way, but it's not, maybe it doesn't come that door. Right. And so
yes,
I would have relaxed more in the journey and just
yes,
been cool with however it unfolds versus it's got to be this way. Right.
yes.
Career thing, I think I did a pretty good job.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That is awesome. I think that's so spot on too. I think we always feel like we have to know the how, which I think is kind of a cycle too, because I think often, especially again as women, we think we have to know how, we have to know how to do it perfectly. We're not going to do it until we do. And so we stay like in that box because we haven't allowed ourselves to be vulnerable and to get out and step out and do that.
Yes. Yes. And it's just, it makes it the way harder. I tried so hard not to have an epidural, and then when I did, I was like, what was I thinking? Like, why did I not just accept this peace offering to have so have that I ended up having to have a C-section anyway? It was like, what was it for? That's a perfect example of my life, right? It's like,
Yes. I like the relaxing. People always say, "You need to relax." I'm like, "It's not relaxing when you tell me to relax, okay?"
that's right, that's right, that's right.
And I will put it out there. I had, as a funny story, because you mentioned the reunion. Now, this was a couple of years ago. We had a new hire I was training, and so, we just met, and I said, "Hey," for training, whatever, "How was your weekend?" "Good." I said, "Oh, mine was good too." I said, "It was actually my 25th high school reunion. I didn't go, but," and I saw his face, and I said, "You have not even been alive for 25 years, have you?" So, there goes
There
that.
we go, and then we realize we're getting older.
We are getting older, exactly. When I say it beats the alternative.
That's
Oh my
right, that's
gosh.
right.
So as we're kind of coming, I guess, to a close here, I love all of this conversation. What do you think you would say, what would you give a woman to inspire her for like one bold action as we are in this Women's History Month?
I would encourage her to just get uncomfortable. say get comfortable being uncomfortable. Create a forcing function of doing it. If it's getting out of the bed on the other side than you normally do, if it's driving the opposite way to work, the long way, whatever it is that gets you out of the routine, because it's change, it's creating a change. And the more you can be adaptable and change, the more you're going to survive. I say agility is the new skill. It's not just the difference, it is your strategic advantage. So the more we can build that muscle, then we can actually be the leaders of change. And when we're the leaders of change, then our value continues to skyrocket. So if you want to build a greater career, if you want to create greater relationships, if you want to have a better life, you want to see change in your physical, spiritual, emotional self, you got to embrace this moment of change. And it's the hardest thing to do, but the forcing function is get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes, I feel like that is when you can get through that misery of the discomfort, right? On the
Yeah.
other side, it can just be so much better.
Yes. Yes.
And then I love to think of like evolutions of growth. So don't think, and I think we do this to ourselves too, right? We get through there, we get to the goal, and then we move the goalpost on ourselves. So also just taking that minute to like celebrate yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. We call it the reset. So every quarter, as a company, we do a reset where we have a half day off, we reflect, we redefine, and we build our next 90-day plan. And I take time off. I do something for myself every 90 days to reset, to celebrate, reflect, learn, and then plan ahead. So I am all about that rhythm, 100%.
Oh, I love that. I hope people are listening to that and hear that because I know, especially like we're in sales, right? So it's like every quarter,
Mhm.
0 to 0. Like, what have you done for me? Go, go, go.
Yes.
And then you start
Yes.
over again for the most
Yes.
important quarter in the history of the company. It's like,
Not this one. The next one is the
next
most
one.
important.
Right. So just taking a little bit of time to celebrate like what you've accomplished that's such a great tip.
100%. Yeah. It helps us
Um,
sustain the pace because it's not going to stop, but you've got to, you know, there's the thing of the one hit wonder, and that's because it's just, it putters out. You just can't keep up the pace. So this gives you the longevity, right? Leaders that last have strategies to continue to fuel their performance, and you've got to rest. I work with professional athletes, and what they spend, if they're not working, they're napping. Like that rest is like strategy. So we've got to remember that rest is a strategy for winning.
I might have to keep putting that on my earbuds and replay. Rest is a strategy. Area of improvement for sure for me.
For all of us. Yes, yes.
Oh my gosh. Have we missed anything?
This has been great. You're a fabulous interviewer.
Oh, no, no, it's all you. It's all the information. This is awesome.
Right.
I love it. Where can people find out more about the conference?
Yes, the shesuitesummit.com is where you can find out all the information, our agenda, tickets, our speakers. So it's our 10-year. We would love, love, love for you all to join us.
Awesome. And then for people, should they connect with you on LinkedIn or where's the best place?
Yes, LinkedIn is the best place. I'm very, very active on LinkedIn, obviously on Instagram and Facebook as well, but LinkedIn is my primary social platform. And
Perfect.
it's
We'll have
melissadonsimpkins.com. Yeah. Or
awesome.
LinkedIn. Yeah.
And we'll put them in the notes as well.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, wasn't that great? The energy that she has is just so uplifting and motivating. Be sure to connect with Melissa on LinkedIn and don't forget to check out the event online, the shesuitesummit.com. Okay, friends, that's what I have for you today. Please be sure to share this episode. Be sure to tag Melissa, myself, and we really want to make sure that more women have the opportunity to attend this event. Okay, with that ask, I will say, make it a great day. Take care. Did you know you can take this work to a deeper level with me one-on-one? Go to michelleburkecoaching.com and click on Get Started to begin.